probably about 10 years ago, there was an effort to go into Scotland to some of the projects in Scotland and plant some churches where the communities were struggling a great deal with just lots of substance abuse, physical abuse, broken families, and in every way. And of course, money was tight. And so they started this initiative called 20 Schemes. And the 20 Schemes was just to plant 20 churches in these different areas. And as they did that, they found that the number one thing they were dealing with, again, was just the problems of abuse of every kind. And so they started writing songs that reflected the tension of brokenness and the ugliness of sin, but the power of God to reach down and help and bring new life and bring change in the middle of that. And so that song we sang earlier was from that group of churches. So as we sing that, I asked them to do it. So as we sing it, you just got to hear it with a thick Scottish brogue, okay? Then it'll make it more interesting, okay? Fair enough? We're on Psalm 27 today. Last week we talked about when our hurts and our harms cause us to question God and to doubt God and really the goodness of God, and how that's an okay place to be as long as we take it to the Lord and as long as we don't get stuck just asking and doubting. So it's very appropriate. It's in the songs. It's part of worship to ask God, why and how long and what's going on? But if we get stuck there, that's a very dangerous thing. And so Psalm 13 that we looked at last week ended with a choice to worship God. Maybe even when David didn't feel it yet, but a choice to turn to praise and to get his eyes on the Lord instead of his circumstances. Where we left off last week is where we kind of pick up this week in Psalm 27, which starts with a bang, which is confidence. A confidence in God's presence, his promises, his goodness, his care, that he's gonna show up and he's gonna meet them in their need. But our tendency is to box God out a little bit. In our harms and our hurts and our questions, to start to just push God away. And pretty soon questions and doubts turn to resentment and they turn to rejection of God. And so that path can also be something that we do. Now in Psalm 27, David's emphasis seems to be on standing to fight. He's not going to run away from the problem or his questions. He's going to stand and fight. So I want us just to read the very first part of it, and then I'll set it up with a story. So let's see if I can get there. You may have to advance it for me. There you go. Thank you. Of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Even evildoers assail me. When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. Just wanted to start by emphasizing that I think the tendency is not to stand and fight with confidence. The tendency when hard things come is to run away, right? It makes much more sense to be a runner. There's some pretty famous runners in the Bible. Jonah ran from the Lord and what the Lord wanted in his life. Elijah ran when he was overwhelmed. Peter, after he denied Christ 3 times, seemed to run away because we find him up in Galilee on a boat. Jesus meets him there for breakfast. Running, I would say, is probably one of our go-to moves. If we don't reject God, if we don't hang out in our doubts and our fears and our questions, the other response to difficulty is just to run away from it. And as we're doing that, in a way to run away from God. And so David's response is the opposite of running. It is, I'm confident in God. He's with me. Who do I have to fear? I'm planking my feet down. I'm ready for the battle. Now, it's camp season, and camp, we spent a lot of years at camp, so I have all these stories and memories. Our old camp was up in Warm Lake. It's now in McCall at Camp Pinewood. But our old camp, it was very frequent for us to have brown and black visitors, bears, that would come along, and they liked the chicken and the leftovers that we didn't all eat in the dumpster. And so I spent, as a leader and a planner of camp, I spent many a late night chasing away bears, or telling the campers to get in their cabins and stay in there for a while until we were confident that they were gone. So that was just part of our rhythm, so much so that we began to schedule the Forest Service to send a ranger in to go over bear safety. And so the campers would come in, and early on they just review with them, hey, if you happen to run into a bear, here's what you do. Now, we really didn't have problems except at night, but in any case, we trained them. And I recall listening to the ranger explain to the campers that if you happen to have an altercation or a run-in with a bear, the worst thing you could possibly do would be to act in a way that would threaten the bear. So loud vocalizations, waving your arms, or running were not encouraged. Even though if you run into a bear, it would seem intuitive to me to want to get away from the bear. But in fact, they described that if things escalated between you and a bear, the first thing you should do is not look at it. Act submissive. And the second thing, if it really got ugly, was just to curl up in a ball and let it knock you around. Because the likelihood was the bear might think of you in the fetal position more like a little cub and leave you alone. I remember thinking, if I run into a bear, the last thing in the world I want to do is wait around for it to knock me around. How about you? Little did I know that I was going to get to try that out the next week. So a week went by, and I was out by myself, reading my Bible, in a nice peaceful place along the creek, and I heard rather aggressive scratching noises behind me. And I thought, well, that didn't sound quite right, so I turned around, and about 25 feet behind me was a bear just stretching out on a tree, clawing away at it and kind of stretching its arms. And immediately, I had the opportunity, for fight or flight, for applying what this ranger had told me was wisdom, or getting out of there, doing what my intuition said was the smarter play. And so I held my ground, and I tried to just not look at the bear, ignore the bear. But the bear wasn't real interested in leaving. And so it kind of went on and on. I thought he was coming my way, so I kind of got down on the ground. I thought, this is not going well. You know how hard it is to do that instead of just run away? I'll tell you, eventually I just ran away. The bear didn't come close enough for it to get dangerous, but eventually I did not hold my nerve. So I'm using that example this morning to say that God tells us sometimes to hold our ground in confidence of his presence, confidence on him. But man, there are times when we want to run, right? It's hurtful, it's painful, it's scary, we don't know what's going to happen. And intuition might tell us, get out of there. But God's wisdom, there are times when we need to be strong in the Lord, to have confidence in the Lord, to not be a runner. And so that's the picture I want to set us with as we get going this morning. So, being confident in our God. You're going to have to advance it for me. It's not connecting. So, if you were breaking down this psalm, I'd say you could break it down this way. The first 6 verses really point to finding confidence in or through the presence of God. And it's kind of self-talk. David's kind of talking almost like he's talking to himself. Then he turns, and it's kind of, again, self-talk on learning or growing to rely on God as you're going through hard things. And for David, it's enemies. It's a very clear present danger. It's the bear in his life, which is probably Saul. And then he closes in the last 2 verses, which is a strong statement again of confidence in God. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to park my feet, and I'm going to wait for God to do his thing with confidence. And so David, he exudes it, but it can't be that easy, right? Because if you're facing a bear, right, it's not easy. And you see that also in these words, that he's having to choose this. He's having to grow in having confidence in God. Trust in God is not just something that's just easy. There are times it might be easy, but there are plenty of times when we're going to have to work, and we're going to have to think it through. We're going to have to choose trust. We're not going to feel it necessarily. And so David here has this confidence. Now, Psalm 27 is a set of 3 Psalms, Psalm 26, 27, 28, that all talk about the tabernacle or a temple. And so some people will study them in a little triplet there. Also, what's interesting about Psalm 27, it was read every day before the Jewish New Year. And then it was read 10 days before the Day of Atonement as a setup. And so it was like a preparation song. We are confident in God. Our trust is in him. We're going to wait on him for that period of time. So it was part of their regular year. Most people probably memorized it because of that. So here we are, and let's continue on through verses 4 through 6 then. Go ahead and advance the slide. One thing I have asked of the Lord that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent, and he will lift me high upon a rock. Notice, and let's finish it. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Now let's go back to the previous 2 verses. Notice he says one thing. There's a singular focus. When the enemy you're facing is the one thing in your focus, notice David's move. I'm confident in the Lord. And then he says, one thing I've asked and I desire to see the Lord. It is difficult, I think, when I'm going through hard things that cause anxiety, that cause tension in my heart, that cause fear, for me to have my eyes truly on the Lord. How about you? Is that just easy for you to do when you're really bothered by something? Just turn and have your eyes on the Lord. But David represents here a singular focus. You know what I'm going to do? Instead of that's bothering me, I'm going to get my eyes on God. My confidence, my hope is going to be there. I want to be close to him. That's my desire. It's kind of like that song, turn your eyes on Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and what does it say? And the things of earth will grow brighter and more scary, right? And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. So there's this theme of getting our eyes off of us and our questions and our doubt and our problem, in this case in Psalm 27, and onto the Lord. I'll have to admit, it's very simple, but I can't tell you how many times I let the things of my life, the grind of life, people in my life, problems in my life, just cycle over and over. And I'm noodling it around in there, right? Just trying to figure it out in my own wisdom, sort it out, make sense of it. And it's just bothering me, and I just let it keep bothering. I just make it worse. And I'm ashamed at how long sometimes it takes me to get out of that cycle and be like, that's not helping me at all. My eyes are on the problem that I can't control. My eyes need to be on God. And so this is just a simple, I think, kind of reminder, kind of a smack. Hey, stand your ground and get your eyes on the Lord. In Regen, they had this quote, and I thought it was really good. Can you advance the slide, please? Sometimes we aren't looking to know and love God. Sometimes we're just waiting for God to fix our circumstances. There's a subtle thing we do, and I've mentioned this many times, but too often we just want God to be our friend that we call, right? When we need the fix. Too often we just want out of the problem currently. And so when we're calling God, it's not because we want to be enamored by him. It's not because we just want our worship to be on God. It's not because we want relationship with him so much. We just want to use him to help us. And it's true, he can do that, and he delights to do that, but he does not want to be a genie in the bottle, right? God desires deeply to be in relationship with us. And that requires that we submit ourselves to him, not that we control God. That's a dangerous hook. David seems to have the right idea here. His eyes are on the Lord. So that's important. It moves on to verses 7 through 12. And it says this. Maybe we'll get there. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me. So he's got some tension in his heart. You have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. Hide not your face from me. Turn not your servant away in anger. O you who have been my help, cast me not off. Forsake me not, O God of my salvation. Move it forward. For my father and mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. The one thing I wanted to hook on here, there's many pieces to what he says here, but it's that teach me. Teach me your way. Our responses to surprises, to hurts, to harms, to ugly evil, to enemies, is often to try to figure it out and control it ourselves. We might even say something like, well, that can never happen again in my life, so I'm going to make sure it never happens again. I'm like as if I have the capacity to do those things, right? It's such a dangerous thing. We can't control what happens, not really. Our range of control is so quickly eliminated or limited. Teach me your way. You know, just like I needed that the words from the ranger to shut up and stand still and not do anything crazy. So I stand. Learning like that takes practice most of the time, doesn't it? That's just not, it's not intuitive always to trust the Lord, to wait on him this way, to seek his face. But it's necessary. It's what he would call us to do. So go ahead and go to the slide. Learning to depend on God is rarely intuitive. It almost always requires practice. So that moves us into the last part, which I think is just the really power punch at the end, verses 13 and 14. And it says this, I would have despaired. I would have given up, is another translation, unless I had believed that I would see the power of God, the anger of God, the victory of God. No, the goodness of God. Didn't we talk about that last week, about how quickly we struggle, how quickly we distrust that God's really good? That I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And then it goes on, it says, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. And so there's this kind of combining of these two ideas. This need, right, to be patient and trust that God is there with us, that his presence, when I seek his face, he is there. But then to wait on his promises, be confident in what he will do, that he's good and he will intervene. In contrast to our human relationships, one of the things we're supposed to learn by practice is that our relationship with God is different. You know, so many of our human relationships change. Circumstances change, people's attitude change. You offend somebody, they offend you. Human relationships change all the time. The person you marry changes. You change, right? All those things change. We learn to not fully trust most of our human relationships. But the Bible presents God as being consistent and steady and dependable and safe. He doesn't change. And the longer you live, the more that should mean something to you. Right? Yeah, I mean, I'm fickle. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you know? I had a bad attitude today. But God's not fickle. Wait for him. Be strong. Let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. There are many passages that talk about this, but go ahead and go to the slide. The promise, yeah, that was the one I wanted. Every once in a while, the throw on this thing just gets off, and I think actually it's just that the battery's dead, so predictable. The promise of the presence of God and the goodness of God helps us wait with confidence. Really, throughout this psalm, he's talking about the presence of God. He's confident that God's going to be with him, and he's confident that God's good, and his promises are set. So he's going to stand his ground. He's not going to run. He's ready for what's coming. That's an important picture. And so really that's something that we see over and over again in the Bible. Go ahead and go to Deuteronomy. This is something God said to the nation of Israel. He said, be strong and courageous. He doesn't say just be strong and courageous, though. He says, do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave or forsake you. This combination of be strong and courageous and God being with us almost always come in tandem. They're almost always linked. And it goes on, it says, and Moses summoned Joshua and said to him, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with the people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall put them in possession of it. Go on. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. So do not fear or be dismayed. That idea that it's God who's with us is connected to be courageous. So what do I need to learn to do? Trust that God's with us and be strong and courageous. It's easier for me to be weak. Honestly. It's easier for me to doubt. But it's a good reminder. We need to have some substance to us for the things that face us. When God's calling Joshua later, go ahead and go to the next slide, a similar phrase is used, and again, the two are connected. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua, you're going to be okay. You got to do battle. You got to lead a whole nation. But you're going to be okay. I'm with you. Those sometimes are the words that we need to hear, right? Hey, suck it up. Stand your ground. Trust in the Lord. Learn to trust in him. Practice it. Wait on him. One of our favorite events in Boise is the Boise Criterium. It's that bike race downtown. It was last night. Last 3 years we've been able to go, and it was nice and cool last night, so we went down and watched the men's heat. And it's interesting as you watch that event, they're flying around blocks right by the Capitol building, and as they go by, just the wind hits you, and it's a fun event. But the last 2 years, there's been an accident. Not that we could see, but we could hear. It was close enough that we heard it. And both times, that is a very sick sound. Because they are flying, going around the corners, and all of a sudden you just hear bikes crunching and bodies hitting. It's very unsettling. Here's the problem with running hard. You crash hard, right? We can run away because we're scared, because it seems like the thing to do. And often that ends in some kind of a crash that just hurts worse, right? If God's called us to hold our ground, to be confident in him, we need to be confident in him, right? And that is going to mean some growth and learning. And by his strength, we can do that. We can trust in the Lord because he's good. Let's pray. Lord, standing our ground is not our go-to move many times. We need help trusting your promises and your presence and your goodness. God, our questions and our doubts and our fears, they don't just go away. Often we want to run away from you or away from the problem, and we need to grow. God, we need you to regenerate us, to reshape and mold us through Jesus and his life at work in us. We need him. We need his life. We need his sacrifice. We need his leadership. And we're here because of that. Thank you for the privilege of living and growing and so many things we enjoy. God, help us as the hard things come to be people of trust and faith. And Lord, when others around us are going through it, help us to be quick to encourage and to share stories of hope. All glory to the Father through the Spirit in the name of Jesus. Amen. Hey, let's close in song. Please stand.
Jesus. We are so glad you joined us this morning. We hope to see you this evening. If not, have a great week. You're dismissed.